Hey, sometimes you get lucky, right? And these two guys were having a cool conversation I'm going to touch in a second. But for those of you who weren't here last week, I'm Adam Bryson. I'll be teaching y'all this semester. We're studying major meals in the book of Luke. There's 10 meals in the book of Luke, and so each week we're just going to look at a different meal. Who can tell us what last week's meal was if you were here? Anybody remember? What did you say? The feeding of the 5,000. You were too close up. They wouldn't have heard you. She got it right too. Yeah, the feeding of the 5,000, which is a pretty cool meal. Like I probably should have started down here, but I started way up here, like with one of the coolest meals. But I think every meal adds like a neat thing. So before we do that, my first question I listed was, do we have any fishermen in this room? Like any fishermen? Raise your hand if you like to fish. I know him and him do because they were talking about it. That's it. I got one guy that likes to fish in here. Mr. Reeves, you don't fish? You don't fish? That's lame, guys. Come on. Well, what's the biggest fish that has been caught in this room? Who can just tell me? What's your biggest fish? Who, her? She? What's your name? She's got it. Tell us, what's your name?
Andrea.
Andrea, what's the biggest fish you've caught?
Shark.
A shark. And how big was it?
It was about 190 pounds.
Nice. Anybody gonna beat her? She beats mine. Mine is a 135-pound halibut off the coast of Skagway, Alaska, which was a pretty cool fish too. But now you got me beat. I lived in Juneau, Alaska for my high school years and then some college years, right? And if you've been to Juneau, Alaska, you know it's like a part of Alaska right on the water, so there's a lot of fishing going on. And when I was in high school, I was friends with a lot of commercial fishermen, like young guys that would go out and fish. And I'll never forget like one of the coolest stories. I had a friend named Nelson, who I'm still Facebook friends with. He was 19 years old, and he was out fishing, gill netting. You ever heard of gill netting? It's where like the fish get stuck in the net and you gotta yank them out. He's gill netting in this cove in Alaska, and it was like, Adam, he tells the story, he's like, the sun's coming up in the morning, you got a glacier off to the right, 2 salmon streams, everywhere you look, salmon are jumping, because they like to loosen their eggs up before they run, So if you go to Alaska, you'll see them jumping and splashing on the water. That's when you know they're there, right? So Nelson is there, and they're about to set net. They set net, and they caught tons of fish. My best friend Nelson in high school, well, actually it was the year after he graduated, made $18,000 in 32 hours of work. Like, that's legit. In 1997, which, like, what do y'all think that would be now? I don't even know. That's weird to think about. I'm old now. All right, moving on. So, Nelson was 19. He did it. I remember that night we went to a place called the Hangar on the Wharf is where we'd go to after work in Juneau. And Nelson came, and you would think, I would say Donald Trump, but that's different. Well, who's somebody else rich? Bill Gates was there, right? Like, just throwing money around. He was like, I'm buying everybody halibut burgers. And like, we were out eating halibut and like fries and playing pool. And it was the greatest night because Nelson had brought in all this money. But then he told us the story. And he told us how he spent 19 hours in the bottom of the boat ripping salmon out of this net for 19 hours straight. And then the process of what they had to do to take the whole net out and literally almost meticulously clean it because it was so just bombarded with guts and grossness. And he was like, dude, that was the worst 19 hours of my life, right? So it's one of those things like, that's why if every time you went, you just made $32,000 with no work, everybody would be a commercial fisherman, right? But I always think about Nelson in that story because he was really loving the fact that he could spoil his friends, right? But the work that Nelson put into that net and taking care of it, it was worth $32,000. Like, it was hard work. So I always think about that when I read stories in the Bible of like fishermen. And so that's kind of the story we're going to jump in today. So everybody open up to Luke, and we're going to go to Luke 5. And Luke 5 may be one of the busiest chapters. We see Luke 5 is when we see friends drop their friend through a hole in the roof to get Jesus to heal them. And we see all this other stuff. But prior to the meal, one of the coolest things is we see Jesus starting to call his disciples. So can somebody who's comfortable reading and doesn't worry about reading a little bit, read Luke 5, 1 through 11. I need 1 through 11. Not all at once.
I'll read it.
Thank you, sir.
As the crowd was pressing in on Jesus to hear God's word, he was standing by Lake Gennesaret. He saw two boats at the edge of the lake. The fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, which belonged to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the land. Then he sat down and was teaching the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." "Master," Simon replied, "we've worked hard all night long and caught nothing. But if you say so, I'll let down the net."
Hold right there real quick, sir. You know, I think about that. That's why I tell that story of Nelson. I think about these guys when I go back to this story. And I think these are guys that didn't have the same technology my friend Nelson had. The same job, they're gill netting, right? Or do some kind of netting of fish. And they had just finished cleaning their nets. And after talking to my friend, know what a process that is. And if you're a fisherman, that's the end of your night. Hey, for me, I'm a principal. The end of my day is when I get that last bus. Hey, bus 594, it's my last bus to ever clear. It's all clear, and I'm like, thank you, I'm going out the door, right? Like, that's my end of the day. Their end of the day is like, hey, we just got the net cleaned and folded up. Let's go. And then Jesus is like, hey, throw that back in. Am I being too loud, man? Will you keep touching that thing? You're making me nervous. I'm good? Okay, keep going, Shane.
When they did this, they caught a great number of fish, and their nets began to tear. So they signaled to their partners in the other boats to come and help them. They came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, because I'm a sinful man, Lord." For he and all those with him were amazed at the catch of fish they made. And so were James and John, Zebedee's sons, who were Simon's partners. "Don't be afraid," Jesus told Simon. "From now on, you will be catching people." Then they brought the boats to the land and left everything and followed him.
All right, so this is before we get into our middle, it's a pretty famous section of the Bible, probably a lot of us. Anything new stand out, as Robert saying did just such a great job reading that? Anything stand out to you guys that you want to hit on before we go in? Or anything that you think of when you read this section? Why is Simon calling Jesus master? I don't know if Robert's had that, but in my version, somewhere in here, it's like, yes, Simon answered, "Master, we've worked all night." Why is he calling him master? What do you think? And I don't mind a little quiet. I know we need time to think. I'm a principal. They say 7 seconds of think time is a good amount of time. That was only 2. Dareberry, why is he calling him master, man?
I don't know.
Can somebody answer that? Does he know Jesus at this point? Like, where are we at? I get so confused because he's calling these disciples who we don't know, but yet he's saying master. Like, that's a heavy word they used back in that time. They're not just throwing that around.
He was teaching from the boat.
He was teaching from the boat. He's got a reputation. And that's what I want y'all to see is like Jesus has already got this reputation, like he's teaching. And people are just wanting to follow him and to just hear from him. And how cool that is. But this is like the first he's calling to follow and come follow. So it just shows that Jesus already has a reputation, right? Like as soon as he came, they're like, "Master, like, hey, we like you and all, but we just clean the nets." There's a level of respect right there. Good point. Anything else y'all got with that?
Didn't he heal Simon's mother-in-law? Was that before?
Did he heal Simon's mother-in-law before? I think that's after this.
It's in Luke 4, but that doesn't mean
I think if you look at kind of, he's creating a stage, so to speak, by getting in the boat and pulling out a little bit. So you kind of look at all the people that are kind of sitting, let's call it like an amphitheater kind of thing. And they're sitting on the shore, and he's pulled himself out away from them. And so he's given himself a good speaking spot.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, you know, he's kind of helping these guys out to fish.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a multi-purpose thing here, but I just think if you really kind of in your eye picture what he's doing, it kind of sets the
It's intentional, right? Like he's going out he's teaching from a boat because people want to be so close to him that I think he's got to almost teach from a boat. I've never had anybody teach from a boat. That's got to be unique. I went to river stages back when I was in high school and they played music from a boat, but I've never seen somebody like teach from a boat. And I just often wonder, like, what would it be like? I don't know. That's just me. Can you hear them well? Any other thoughts? Great idea.
They were fishermen, that was their jobs, and they had just spent all night and got nothing. But when he filled up their boats, it says when they brought their boats to land, they left them.
Yeah.
All of them.
Right?
So, I mean, there was probably $32,000 worth of fish, and they left them.
To just follow. Yeah, I never thought of that. Like, what happened to the fish? That probably fed a whole lot of people, you know, that came along and be like, well, we got fish.
That's saying look forward that he'd already healed Simon's.
Okay, so they have that connection. I'm not sure. I need to go back and study that because I've taught this 12 times and never that been brought up, but I'm going to look into that. I think about it like this, like Simon, at the end of his workday, had to be so tired, discouraged, and just worn out and done with whatever. And then Jesus is saying, that's okay, keep doing this. And sometimes I think this idea of like, it's hard to follow Jesus sometimes, right? Because we're tired, we're discouraged, we're worn out. But I see like Simon obeyed and was blessed. And sometimes we just got to do that first step of obeying. That's what I think of when I read this part of the story of like, sometimes you just got to take that first step. And again, I often say in my first question, what's the significance of washing his nets? The hard work in that. Y'all already answered that. All right, anything else we got before we go to the next section? Any other thoughts? Good ideas? I'll say this. We're literally seeing Jesus' ministry get started here, right? Like we're seeing the ground floor. And this is one thing as a leader, like a school leader. You know, you got Shane Reeves as a leader. There's all sorts of leaders in this building. What is it about Jesus often wonder that people were just so willing to follow? Like, because I feel like I'm a really good leader, but if I went to Derryberry and said, hey, quit your job and follow me,
No.
well, I don't know where we're going, but he's not going to follow me. He's not going to quit his job, probably. Although I did give him a really cool hat for his birthday, but...
You can have the hat back.
No. I've seen what you do to hats. So, why? Why was people so willing to follow Jesus? Like, what is it about him? Is it the miracles, the teaching? What do y'all think? Why do you think people are quick? Chloe, what you think?
Well, it kind of made me think of the Ignite shirt. You know,
Uh-huh.
she was different, and I think there was a lot of rabbis at the time, but there was something about Jesus that was different.
Okay. There's a lot of teachers, rabbi teachers, but Jesus was different. What else? Why else do you think people are so quick to just leave? I can't think of any other story where somebody tells fishermen, stop and follow me. Who said it? This young lady with a boat full of fish to just go follow somebody. So why? We don't really know, do we? I think it's all of it. What are you going to say? Did you have something?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say, and I have said this before, the movie Ben-Hur, the original Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston, when they encounter Jesus, you never see Jesus. You only see people's reaction to Jesus when they look at him. I think he was just so full of the Holy Spirit that people, it was amazing. They didn't know.
People just want to be near him. People just want to be near it. I often say, you know, y'all may not know this lady, but there's a preacher at Brentwood Hills. Gosh, I'm going to do a terrible job telling this story. Called Walt Lever. Y'all know Walt Lever. His mom is Mrs. Lever to me. Mrs. Lever has left the earth and she's in heaven. But when I was near Miss Lever, I was closer to God. There was something about her that people just want to be near because it was like, you got like, I feel like she had the cell phone to God. She was just such a good God-following person that it was something different about her. And so, like, people just wanted to be around Walt's mom because of that. You meet people like that, that's Jesus times 1,000, right? Good thought. Anything else? All right, and the next story right after this, we see Jesus healing a man with leprosy who touches him. We don't have time to read it. We get the group of friends that lower their friend through the hole in the ceiling. And then we're going to get to today's meal. So everybody turn or get to 27. We're going to start in Luke 5:27. And I'll read this section. And I'm going to stop a lot and we're just going to talk through it. So be thinking as I read like, ooh, that's pretty interesting. All right, so 27 says, after this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector by the name of Levi sitting at his tax booth. Follow me, Jesus said. And Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. All right, so we got another one coming. All right, which one do you think it's harder to leave and just follow, the fisherman or the tax collector? And who are you? And why are you not, like, who would be harder to follow, a tax collector or a fisherman? Which is harder to give up and follow them? What y'all think? Dumb question, but I like dumb questions.
I think they both have, like, things you're giving up. Like with fishing, there's a very strong sense of community in that. And there's like, this is what my father did and this is what his father did. This is all you know. But I almost think it might have been easier for Levi to leave because of his isolation in that role.
Okay, I like it.
Like he was kind of an outcast because he worked technically for the Romans. And so it's like when you have someone who is like, looks like you, who is like, you know what, I see you and you come follow me. So
Chloe's saying, like being a fisherman, it'd be really hard because that's your family, your community, but being a tax collector, it might be a little easier because you're all on your island anyways. I don't know. I know what the tax collectors had a lot of, right? Is money. And it's hard for people to just put that away. Like, I think that's one of the reasons, money's hard, right? Like, money makes a lot of bad. So, anybody agree, disagree, or any other thoughts on that idea? Yes, sir.
I'll disagree.
Oh, he's disagreeing with you. I love when people disagree with me.
But just for the sake of,
Yeah.
it might be harder as the tax. So if you're a fisherman and you give up, and it doesn't work out, you leave. Oh, that was a bad decision. Like maybe you got to go fish somewhere else.
Yeah.
You give up as the tax collector, you're not getting back in.
No, dude, it's a club, man. Like like the Bass Pro Club we're in. Like it's a club to get in, and it's really hard to get in. But it'd be really like once you've lost that, you're done. I don't know. Either way, but it's hard for both. Is the idea like how cool is it that we see two completely different professions? You got this professional who's probably dresses really nice, who carries himself like he's really important. Then you got fishermen, like the complete opposite of a tax collector. I know my experience with fishermen. We're Alaskan fishermen, so they may be weirder, but they're kind of like gruff dudes, right? Like everyone I know is a tough, pretty strong guy. And they both were just willing to stop, drop, and follow, and how cool that is. I just think that's really special. Any other thoughts? I'm going to stop for a second. You got an idea? You had that smirk on your face.
Well, these are two totally opposite groups of people.
Completely.
And they probably didn't get along anyway.
Yeah.
And now you're bringing them into the same club. It's almost like you're inviting a little argument.
Yeah.
There's going to be tension all the time.
Yeah, you wonder, like, hey, couldn't we have maybe set this up a little better? Like, let's go all fishermen or all tax collectors. But they're just going to fight if we get them together, right?
And what does the tax collector bring to the table? Like a fisherman can at least go to market and knows how to barter.
I feel like accountants might get mad at you with that statement, man. Do we have any accountants in there? He said, what does a tax collector even bring to the table?
Just one, in his opinion, doesn't matter.
Who is it? Who is it?
Oh, whoops, I'm sorry to you then. I'm sorry.
But I don't call myself a tax collector.
You're not a tax collector? I think we should call you that. So, what do you think? What's your thoughts as you hear that as somebody who works for that? What, I mean, he does bring something to the table, don't you think? What is it? I don't know. Something. Jesus did everything for a reason, right?
Organization.
Organization, yeah.
You know what's
hard on
interesting
Levi.
though?
Hold on, let me do her and then you. You go first and then her.
Seems to me like it would be harder on Levi, because there's nothing in the Bible that says he knows anything about Jesus.
Yeah.
At least Simon's seen some things, talked to him, and, you know, and then Levi's just said, no, hearing out of the blue, some dude walks up and, you know.
It makes it, if you put it in their if you can just see it through their point of view, it makes this so much more amazing. Like, I'm a school principal. I make really decent money, right? I didn't say good. I said decent. No, really decent money. I love my life. If somebody said, hey, we got this position. We want you to go do this and just go into this ministry. I don't know if I could do it. Because all I know is this profession I know and love. And I'm doing great stuff in there. But God may be calling me this way, and I'd have a really hard time because that's what I know. That's so foreign to what is... You know, and so it amazes me that anybody could just stop what they're doing and go. I think it's amazing.
Adam.
Yes.
And Levi he worked for the Romans,
Mhm.
so he had a good working knowledge of the people that were in power
Yeah.
at the time, and he could bring that to the table,
Yeah.
to the group.
I think he definitely brings something to the table, and we know, like, as we learn, there's a reason all these men were chosen. And I just think it's interesting because it would be surprising for this guy of all of them to be picked. Because I even think about, Zacchaeus, the wee little man, like, that dude was a chief tax collector. Like, he was important among the tax collectors and probably was viewed with some esteem. This guy is like one of the minions that just goes and gets the money. Like, Levi was probably hated. Like, I think we know Levi was not one of the favorite of the favorite. He probably made money by skimming off of his fellow Jews. That's how they made extra money. So there's not a lot of love there. So, anything else before I read the next one? You're going to see there's just going to be conversation about every line we read. Anything else before we keep reading?
Well, I wonder if Jesus literally just said, follow me, or if there was a whole conversation that we just
Right?
don't have.
What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know that a whole conversation would change my mind either, but.
What do you have to convince you? Like, follow me. And here's my reasons. I got my bullet points, right? Like, that's not Jesus.
No, but I could see a conversation in which he just goes up to him and starts talking, and he starts saying stuff to Levi that it's like, there's no way he could have known this.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And he's like, I see you, and it's like, if you want something different, then follow me. It wouldn't be like a convincing thing. It would just be like a love thing.
Yeah. He makes it so clear. All right, so.
Jesus may have seen some conflicting stuff in Levi's life. He wasn't born and raised a Jew, and he's kind of.
Yeah.
Everybody, the taxers even knew they were going against their people.
100%. He was not a good dude. I'm going to be real. He was not a good guy.
See, it's not the text, and also the power of Jesus, or if you will, his presentation. He did this since he was 12 years old and got respected. So there was something there that God gave him some.
He spoke in a way where he was different,
I
right?
think he got all the gifts.
Yeah. Like, you think about somebody who can, as a 12-year-old who can speak in the temples, like, you got an authority that other people don't got, right? For the most part.
We used to give Ted Beatty, if everybody knows Ted Beatty, he was old man. When
I know Ted Beatty, man. He's great.
And then this past week, Charles Kirk had some abilities to persuade people.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes you got to be able to. All right, so you guys have been listening. You're like, I thought this was called Lessons in Luke, Meals in the Bible. We don't have a single meal in this story. So verse 29, the next step. So he gets called. Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. And then verse 29, then Levi held a great banquet for Jesus at his house. And a large crowd of tax collectors and others were eating with him. So the first thing Levi does, he gets called, stops, drops, and follows, and then he throws a party. Why? Why y'all think he did this? That's random to me. Why would we throw a feast right away? Or do you think there's a reason for it? Or do you have any thoughts on that?
It was kind of weird for Jesus to be like, follow me, and then they end up back at Levi.
Yeah, right? Like, he left, and then we're going to go have a meal together. That's not really following, but maybe. Any thoughts? Who do you think would be at this meal if they say tax collectors? What kind of meal is this? If you picture this meal, is it a large meal, a small meal? How do you envision this meal looking? If you make eye contact, man, I promise I'll call on you.
I think he's showing off his money.
Showing off his money? Okay. So you take it as like, hey, this is an opportunity to show like, yeah, I'm going to be one of your disciples, but I'm the wealthy disciple, maybe. I don't know. Showing off his money. Because he probably had things that none of those fishermen could do or offer. What else? One of the Clements, give me a thought.
It is interesting to have a big, I would assume it was a big banquet.
It says a large crowd.
For Jesus, likely funded by ill-gotten gains.
Yep. Oh, isn't that weird? Is it okay then to eat those foods? Right? If I invite you over and I said, hey, look, I bought this from this nefarious way, well, should you eat it? I don't know. Way to make it weird, Clemens.
I'm an insurance adjuster, so I'm kind of revered somewhat as tax collectors are sometimes.
Do you work for Safeco?
Geico.
Well, good, because go ahead.
But I'm pretty close to retirement, and when I get out of that gig, I'm probably going to throw a big feast.
Yeah.
So there was probably some sense of peace that was.
Cool idea. I never thought about that.
He was exiting something awful with some good future. ahead.
Never thought of that. There's an element, maybe he was like, "What? Hey, I'm going to celebrate this. Like, I've been doing this, and this is," I mean, deep down, yes, I think humans are driven by money. We've seen that. A lot of humans are driven by money. But deep down, you got to get to a point, if you're this guy, Levi, where you're home alone at night, and you have all the things you need, but you're by yourself and lonely and thinking about it's got to be a terrible way to live. This may be like, hey, this is my only chance out, because guess what? He didn't have any options. You go from being, you're how close to retirement?
Hopefully a year or so.
That's my man. So, if you stopped and said, dang it, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Insurance is just so far from what I got into. It'd be really hard for you to find a job that's making what you're making right now as a grown man, right? For your last year of work. It doesn't work that way. And I think about Levi, like he's this tax collector. He's making more money than he probably ever thought he could. And if he just gives it up, then I have no money, right? Like I have nothing. So it's maybe something like, dang, I'm going to celebrate. I get out. I don't know. I never thought of that.
It also says that he held a great banquet for Jesus.
Yeah.
So maybe it's to say, hey, friends, this is the new guy I'm going to follow, and I want you to see him too and meet him too. He's worthy of a great banquet.
How cool is that?
Spend all my
Spend
funds
all my
that I
funds
have
on him.
because now I'm just
Yeah.
going to follow him. Yeah.
Do you think Jesus should have been at this meal? Why? Miss Clements. He keeps speaking up when I say one of the Clements. I'm sorry. Miss Alice Clements, why?
I think it goes back to a little bit of what Jane was talking about, how Jesus was just so different and so special
Yeah.
that Levi had to do this for him. He was so compelled by Jesus, the person that he was, that he just had to do this for him. And of course Jesus was supposed to be there. He was God.
Yeah.
He's not going to be anywhere he's not supposed to be.
Of course. And I look at it because it'd be easy for an outsider. I just say that because it'd be easy for me if I'm a Jew and I've been mistreated by these Jewish tax collectors to see this guy that's supposedly the Son of God eating with him and be like, I want nothing to do with that. I mean, that's where my mind would go. And so I think about it like Jesus ate with the people that we wouldn't think he should eat with him and hung with the people he didn't. And that's who our Jesus is. Luke 7:33, I'm going to read real quick. You don't have to turn there. 33, 34, and 35 just says, For John the Baptist came neither eating bread nor drinking wine, and you say, he's a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and you say, here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by all her children. Like Jesus came into the world to be with the world, right? And so it's almost like no, you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't in that situation, right? Am I allowed to say that? I just look at Anna sometimes and be like, is that okay?
We talk about gambling in here, so
Okay.
we can do that.
Well, I can understand. All right, so, we're used to that. We read about Jesus eating and associating with people that you wouldn't think he would. And so that's cool. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really is because people didn't do that back then. We didn't associate with people outside of our group. You know, my daughter Violet, I have a middle school daughter. we watched for the first time over 2 days, because it's long as can be, Titanic. Now, we fast-forwarded through 3 scenes. I can promise you there's 3 scenes you got to fast-forward through, and I did. Don't judge me. I went through them. But the interesting thing about Titanic that I was trying to show my kid is like how class worked back then so intensely. Like they locked people in who couldn't even get a chance to get out because they were second-class citizens. And my daughter was watching, I was like, what's happening? And I was like, baby, back then, like, and to this day, like, in the London culture or the English culture, like, class was big. And if you were at a lower class, you didn't have a chance to get up here. And I think that still happened in everything. Like, in Jesus' time, there was people who, if those people had no chance to get near Jesus. So Jesus came near them, right? And I think that's what's cool about him. Go ahead.
I've been sitting here thinking, you asked what did Levi have to offer?
Mm-hmm.
Why Levi? What did he have to offer? Well, he threw this banquet and invited all the tax collectors. Like, would the tax collectors have even paid attention to Jesus if it weren't for Levi inviting them to this banquet?
Yeah.
So Levi was that person to bring that crowd to Jesus.
He's trying to bring a whole crowd. It's great. All right, let's read 30. Told you there's going to be questions after each line. But the Pharisees and teachers of the law who belonged to their sect complained to the disciples, "Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" So I do say this. Do the Pharisees have a semi-fair point? Like they see Jesus eating with tax collectors, and how else was it described? Sinners. Like, Jane, you've known me for 9 years now. I know that just because when I started working at MTCS, not because I have a Facebook memory. But you think I'm a pretty decent guy, I think. Jane, if you drove and went to like Honey Baked Ham, does that place still exist next to Kroger? And there's a bar next to there. I think it's called Lonnie's or something. I've never been there, but it looks kind of sketchy. Hanks.
I just frequent Kroger a lot.
Okay, Hannah Wakeham. Hanks! And there's a Hanks too. No, I'm just kidding, because there really is. I know that. I saw the sign. Anyways, let's get back. If Jane saw me and Hanks just passing to go to Kroger's, and I'm there on a Friday night just in the top, just being fun, and everybody, you may kind of be like, I don't know if Adam should be in there, man. Like, should we be associating with those people? And that's fair. So do the Pharisees have a fair point to be like, why are you hanging out with these people? What you think? No. You're still talking about Hanks. I want somebody to answer before we move on. Is it fair for the Pharisees to have some judgment of who Jesus is hanging out with? What do you think?
I mean, it would make anybody think twice.
Right? They're not wrong to be like, hey, well, what you doing, Jesus? Like, first reaction, like, I'm not saying, yes, I want Jesus eating with everybody. But from their perspective, walk in and like, hell, he's just eating with bad people. There's a little fairness to that, maybe.
This is where Skid agrees with the Pharisees.
Okay.
You hang around.
100%. It's true.
I think you have to, it's not fair, it's not fair to judge that person if you don't know them. If they don't know Jesus on a relational level,
Yeah.
if they did, they might actually understand.
Well, doesn't that really stand strong today, too? Like, people that I get frustrated with, I'm like, God, man, if you just knew Jesus. You know, I mean, that's very telling or very true, Alice. Who would be these? Like, so we know it says tax collectors and sinners, right? Is the meal Jesus is having. It's the meal he's supposed to be having. What would that meal look like today if somebody was describing it, instead of saying, Jesus just came and ate with tax collectors and sinners, like, who would those people be today? Would it be, I'm just playing, that was bad. Like insurance, tax, or the Fed, or who would it be? Like, who would those people be? That was a joke, sir. I don't think insurance people are bad unless it's Safeco.
It would be all of us.
All of us. Okay, why? Yeah.
Because we're all sinners.
Okay, I like that. She says all of us.
I mean, I'm looking like, don't get on a high horse. But it's like, it's easy to look and go, oh, you're a fill in the blank, and call them out by their sin. But how many sins do we have that aren't publicly viewed.
That's great.
And we like to try to hide and, oh, they're sinners, but guess what? You are too.
Yeah.
So he would be eating with all of us.
So she says all of us. Do y'all agree, disagree? Did she just jump my class 5 minutes ahead? Sorta, but that's okay. No, what other thoughts do we have on that? That was a good comment. What other thoughts do you have on that?
If you look at the actual, the way it's written, it says it complained to his disciples.
Mm-hmm.
So his disciples are probably so new. We don't know the time frame of what's happened here, so we don't know how long it's been since, they were called in the boat, the fishermen, versus now.
Sure.
And how many other disciples he collected. So, they've got to almost be going, they're holding up their hand in shrug, kind of like, well, we don't know what he's doing any more than these guys that are asking the question.
I think we can almost fairly assume, no, we don't know the time, but it's all in one chapter. No matter how long it's been, at this point they probably have no clue. They're probably like, "What is he doing, y'all?" Like, what? I think there's probably an element of they don't know yet, like they don't see it yet. Yes, ma'am.
The question was asked to the Pharisees, but then Jesus answered.
All right.
So, the disciples.
Yes.
Jesus answered it, so.
So do you think they were like in a circle talking, or you think he just kind of like sensed it or heard it? What do you think? I know. Well, figure it out, man. I need answers. What she had an answer. What'd you said? You said something as soon as I asked that. What'd you say?
There's a couple of other times in Luke that they weren't specifically talking to him, but he answers. Like
Yeah.
he has a sense of, he knows what's going on
Mm-hmm.
in the crowd. So I don't think he had to hear it. I
Yeah.
think he just sensed it was going on.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in order to plant seeds, you kind of have to meet people where they are.
You do.
I'm not saying I'm going to hang out with somebody at Hanks.
But you've been there before. Because you know.
Come on now.
If anybody needs to go to Hanks, dang it, I'm taking Anna. Sorry.
Anna and Hank, I say she's up to something good.
I
saw you there.
They're like, what's he doing? We get him out of
But
there.
I will say, I was talking to somebody this week that she reminded me, I had completely forgotten. She said, do you remember hosting my baby shower? And she said, I was 15 years old.
Wow.
I was a teen pregnancy. And she was just saying, you helped plant the seed in my life. It's been a hard life and that kind of thing. And I didn't remember.
Yeah.
But, you just plant seeds.
And probably at that time you felt like this is a lot of work I'm doing for this
you just
girl.
had to meet them where they are.
But you don't even remember it, and you changed her life, right? Yeah, I think that's
didn't,
great.
But, it planted a seed.
Planted a seed that grew. And I think about, here's another example similar to that. Like I've shared, I don't know if I've ever shared it. Sarah is my wife, who y'all know, right? Like she's not in here. She's heard this series before, so you don't gotta listen again. But it's not that she don't want to follow. But what was my whole point of that? What were we talking about, Anna? You got me distracted. Planting seeds. So we were part of a church plant for 10 years in Woodbine, South Nashville, Glencliff High School area. It's called Woodbine Family. It was a healthy church, all teenagers that went to Glencliff High School. Still friends with those kids to this day who are now young men, and it's like, wow, what happened? It's crazy. But there was one family that was really impactful. There was a lady named Leona. She had a daughter named Brianna. Leona was just an older lady that was raising her daughter on her own. She had had a tough life, and she had moved in, and we become part of the church. And we had a home that she was staying in. She got cancer, and it was a fast cancer. And, that was one of the first funerals that I've had to hold a daughter's hand through, and it was really painful. And, that was 12 years ago, and I always think, I hope I was impactful. I was the only white man at that funeral. That made me feel special. But I was like, I hope I was impactful. Well, last month, start of school, some lady runs up to me, gives me a big hug in school, which is weird because parents probably shouldn't hug the principal. And I look, and it's some young lady that I don't recognize, and she goes, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "I'm Brianna Scott. Do you remember me?" I was like, "You're Leon. Of course I remember you." And she just shared kind of how impactful Sarah and I were, and I had no clue. And we don't ever typically get those comebacks. But it's that idea of I never would have hung out with Leona. Y'all, the funeral I went to was the most uncomfortable funeral of my life. I saw people speaking in tongues and throwing things, and it was a different experience. but I sat next to Brianna and held her hand, and she doesn't forget that, right? And so sometimes you got to just go to places you wouldn't ever think you'd go, right? Anyways, we're about to have the greatest mic drop in the history of mic drops, okay? Like, this is the best ending to a Bible class ever. I don't even have to say anything, just read. You know, because what I know is like, Jesus surrounded himself with sinners, with tax collectors, with everybody. He hung out with the good, the bad, and the indifferents. The people he really didn't like is the people that claimed to be great that were just looking good on the outside, right? Like, Jesus has always been a Jesus that is not worried about where we've been. He's worried about who we're becoming, right? And that's a beautiful Jesus. And so, they get all these questions. I want to go back and make sure I get it right. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law who belong to their sects complained to the disciples. Like, you're right, they complained. Like, what you get for complaining? Like, who are you to complain? Like, that, anyways. Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners? And Jesus gives the greatest mic drop moment ever. He just answers them. And probably one of my favorite verses in the Bible. It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance. Like, that's it. That's beautiful. And that's a mic drop moment from our Jesus. And that's scripture that has given me hope. That's scripture that's given me confidence for like the last, well, now I had 18 years, but now I've been a Christian for 19 years. 19 years of being a Christian, right? This is like, that's who Jesus is. He's not looking for a museum of perfect people. He's come to be a hospital for all of us, because she answered it correctly. And I had to kind of drag class on a little bit because she cut 5 minutes. No, I'm not going to say it. But she was right. And you said what?
We're all sinners.
Jesus would have us all at this meal, because he's come for every single one of us. And that's what he says. It's not the disciples saying, Jesus didn't come for the Jesus said, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I've come for all of you. And that's pretty special. So, thank y'all. Have a good rest of your day.